Alzheimer's: Prevention, Treatments, and Solutions for a Better Life. Written by Quinn Spencer. Narrated by Eric Boozer. Alzheimer's disease. What is it? Alzheimer's disease is a form of dementia which affects middle-aged and older people. It is a progressive disease that slowly kills the victim's nerve cells in the brain. Alzheimer's is a rather complex disease that seems to be caused by several influences. It is the most common type of dementia, accounting for roughly 70% of diagnosed cases, and it knows no boundaries, being spread across different cultures and affecting both males and females in equal measure. Alzheimer's disease can be extremely stressful for the victim's family, who very often find themselves being in the front line when it comes to providing care and support. It ought to be remembered that the family member or members doing the caring will also need plenty of support. The care of an Alzheimer's patient is quite a challenge because the decline is slow and unpredictable and can progress at a different pace. If it happens that Alzheimer's is diagnosed, seek out any local services and aid groups that are available from your doctor's surgery or inquire at your local hospital. There is not a single special test for Alzheimer's, but invariably the correct diagnosis is achieved by ruling out other causes of memory loss, for example, Parkinson's disease, minor strokes, or depression. This disease normally rears its ugly head at the age of 60 or so, and the risk gets higher with age progression. All the same, it must be remembered that Alzheimer's disease is not necessarily a normal part of the aging process. Alzheimer's can be described as the death of the mind before the body, and as such is a very difficult and depressing condition for any family to have to deal with. Alzheimer's is reckoned to be a fatal disease, but the usual cause of death is normally another illness, like pneumonia, which can develop as a complication in an individual already severely weakened by Alzheimer's. The treatment for Alzheimer's disease is still relatively young, but researchers are very confident that the time is not too far away when medications will become available that will be able to successfully treat the symptoms of Alzheimer's. What parts of the brain are affected? Alzheimer's eventually affects most parts of the brain. However, each person is affected differently as the disease progresses. The main brain regions affected by Alzheimer are the frontal, temporal, and the parietal lobes. The frontal lobe is located at the front of the brain and controls a range of functions, such as intelligence, making decisions, solving problems, and other mental and social functions. Damage to this area causes decrease in quality of life and generates severe problems for patients to take care of themselves. The temporal lobe is located at both temples and ears, and they are responsible for the long and short-term memories. Episodic memory helps us to remember events, such as where we parked our car or where our house keys are. Remembering such events requires the storing and retrieving processes located at our temporal lobe. The ability to learn is located in this region, so damage to these areas may lead to memory loss. This loss causes the inability to register new information and retrieve it later when needed. Speech ability is located behind the temporal lobe at the parietal lobe. This region is also responsible for the visual system and enables visual analysis and stimuli. Damage to this area may cause abnormal speech and visual problems. Alzheimer first affects the hippocampus, which is located in the medial temporal lobe of the brain. It is the area of the brain in which new memories are formed. It then moves to other areas, affecting different functions, such as reasoning or emotions. The cerebellum and the brain stem are the last areas of the brain to be affected. This is when we lose control of basic functions, such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. This is Alzheimer's final stage, leading to death. What are characteristic symptoms of Alzheimer's disease? Scientifically speaking, our brain has following functional divisions. 1. The largest part is, as they call, the cerebrum. 2. The cerebellum. And 3. The brainstem. They work together to support all your mental and physical activities, anything you do knowingly and unknowingly, from the time you wake to the time you fall into sleep, and also during the period of sleep. In other words, it is the brain that makes everything in your life possible. The disease of Alzheimer does not spare any area of the brain unaffected. It gradually attacks and affects all areas of brain in the people suffering from this disease. As the disease keeps on affecting various parts of the brain of the sufferer, new symptoms keep on emerging, and this keeps on until the death of the person. The following is the list of symptoms or mental and physical disabilities manifesting in those suffering from the disease. 1. Problem of recent memory loss. 2. Problem of attention. 3. Problem of language. 4. Problem in generation of speech. 5. Problem in social behavior. 6. Problem in emotion. 7. Problem of movement of body part. 8. Problem in identifying of body parts. 9. Problem of self-identification. 10. Problem of unawareness of space, locality, time. 11. Problem of sleep. 12. Problem of writing. 13. Problem of visual attention. 14. Problem of identifying object. 15. Problem of reading. 16. Problem of hearing. 17. Problem of irritability, anger. 18. Problem in recognition of face. 19. Problem of long-term memory. 20. Problem of sense of smell. 21. Problem of control on emotion. 22. Problem of recent memory loss. 23. Coordination of fine movement. 24. Problem in holding objects. 25. Problem in making rapid movement. Alzheimer diagnosis. Key to early detection and treatment. Alzheimer's disease is difficult to diagnose. Still today, the only certain method of Alzheimer diagnosis is through brain biopsies made after the patient's death. While this is a certain method, it is completely backward-looking, like an autopsy. What is needed are forward-looking tests and markers. With living patients, the accepted working method for Alzheimer's diagnosis by a process of elimination. They systematically test for and eliminate each of the many factors that could possibly be responsible for the visible behavior-related symptoms. Once all of these possibilities are eliminated, then Alzheimer's is the only remaining possibility, and a diagnosis can be made. Researchers have been hard at work developing methods and markers for early and certain detection of the beginnings of the Alzheimer process of neurological degeneration. The goal was to find markers, be they biochemical, genetic, or physical, with high correlation to the onset and progression of the disease. The goal is to be able to see it coming and measure its progression so that various new treatments can be started early, and so their effects on the disease in the patient can be measured to test efficacy, to try different dosages, and then measure the results. There is important progress being made in the area of Alzheimer diagnosis. Genetic indicators have been found, biomarkers are being developed, and brain scan technology is constantly improving. Genetic. A team at the Translational Genomics Research Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, has found a gene called GAB2. If you have a damaged version of it, you are at far higher risk of eventually developing Alzheimer's. They are now working to develop a quick and simple test to detect a damaged gene. Identification of the presence of the gene would identify people who are at risk for the disease later in their lives. It may eventually help us to diagnose Alzheimer's disease even before it starts. Biomarkers. Nanogen Incorporated, a San Diego, California-based advanced technology company, works to provide researchers, clinicians, and physicians with improved methods and tools to predict, diagnose, and ultimately help treat the disease. In early 2007, they announced having received 2 patents that relate to the identification of protein biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease. To get a patent, they would have had to demonstrate something that is new, unique, and that works. Brain scan tests, such as a computerized tomography or CT scan, the most widely used, magnetic resonance imaging or MRI scan, or positron emission tomography or PET scan, along with single photon emission CT or SPECT, are now being used. These non-intrusive methods let physicians have a picture of the living brain itself. These scanning technologies enable healthcare professionals to see abnormalities within the brain. While they are of great help in Alzheimer's diagnosis, they still struggle to get and present good, clear pictures and information. However, these are constantly being improved. Still, the current level of intensity of the search and the visible progress that is being made are encouraging signs. Hopefully, we will soon have much better methods for early Alzheimer diagnosis and treatment. Alzheimer's disease and its impact on your life. Alzheimer's was discovered a long time ago by Dr. Alzheimer as he examined patients that exhibited bizarre behaviors that could not be explained and were often placed into mental institutions. Unfortunately, Alzheimer's is a fatal brain disease and one of the most common forms of dementia known today. If you or someone you know has Alzheimer's, they will experience the loss of many functions and usual abilities that they once were able to have normally, such as memory loss and intellectual capabilities and discernment. Also, Alzheimer's occurs in a series of stages, so it can often be difficult to catch as some of the symptoms coincide with normal things that tend to happen as people get older, such as having a hard time remembering things from time to time. The first stage of Alzheimer's presents absolutely no symptoms at all, and that is why it can never be caught. It allows the person to function totally normally, and patients who have this will experience no memory loss or any problems. That means that this will not be diagnosed by any healthcare professional if taken at this stage because it is absolutely not presenting itself in any form. Chances are people will not even go seek a healthcare professional at all because they will experience no impairments in stage 1. That is why it is good to seek care if you have a relative who has Alzheimer's, particularly a parent or grandparent, so you know that it is something to be aware of. Stage 2 offers mild symptoms such as slight memory loss about names, places, and where they put things. The brain may start to be affected by the disease in little ways, and the patient will not remember things that used to be pretty clear to them. However, even though some symptoms begin to show, that does not mean that this will help it be diagnosed, because many people attribute the signs that appear in stage 2 as normal signs of aging and getting on in the years. In stage 3, similarly, there is mild cognitive decline as well, but finally the signs shown are enough to maybe secure a diagnosis of the disease. For instance, patients will have a hard time remembering the names of family or friends and not be able to remember names of anyone new they encounter. This will create some performance problems at work or in social aspects, as they will not always remember what to do or how to do it. At this stage, if this is really unusual behavior for the person, they can go and get it checked out and maybe even diagnosed. In stage 4, this is where Alzheimer's is usually diagnosed as people cannot remember events, occasions, or even the current events around them. They are unable to do mental math, and they can no longer do tasks that require a lot of thinking or planning, such as paying bills or working on hosting a party. People forget their own personal history and often get depressed and melancholy. Step 5 and 6 only get worse as people can no longer remember the current details about their life and usually get confused about the time, the place, the date, and their surroundings. And it gets worse. They will be unable to recognize the people around them or even know who they are themselves. They will need help getting dressed and will not be able to perform ordinary activities without assistance. Alzheimer's disease's stage pattern development. Alzheimer's disease could be from mild, moderate, moderately severe, and severe. Alzheimer's disease are explained as stages falling in general division of early stage, mid-stage, and late-stage categories. Experts have made a basic framework stating the development of Alzheimer's disease and its stage pattern of development. This framework is based on a system developed by Barry Reisberg, MD, Clinical Director of the New York University School of Medicine's Silberstein Aging and Dementia Research Center. The stage pattern development of Alzheimer's disease provides for useful reference for how the disease may unfold and thus helping the family members for the future aspect. Though developing of the Alzheimer's disease may or may not happen according to the framework, Their progress may not be at the same rate as people with Alzheimer's disease die an average of 4 to 6 years after diagnosis, but Alzheimer's disease can have duration varying from 3 to even prolonging till 20 years before killing the patient. Stage 1. No impairment. The patient will be normally functioning like any other normal human being. This individual will experience no memory problems, and thus the Alzheimer's disease will not be evident to a healthcare professional. Stage 2. Very mild cognitive decline. Basically, in this stage, the person with Alzheimer's disease will start having the basic symptoms of very mild cognitive decline, like forgetting of glasses, memory lapse, or loss especially of names or familiar word and locations. But these symptoms will basically be ignored or be termed as normal age-related changes, whereas they are the early signs of Alzheimer's disease. These symptoms, again, will not be evident to medical practitioner and even to family, friends, or coworkers. Stage 3. Mild cognitive decline. This is the stage when people living with the affected person recognize of him having some problems. This is the stage when Alzheimer's disease can be diagnosed, yet all individuals suffering are not diagnosed in this stage. In this stage, patient suffers from problems with memory and concentration. Basic symptoms of this stage are difficulty in using words or names, difficulty in ability to remember new names of person introduced, performance issues in social and work settings, reading difficulty as passage is little retained, losing and misplacing valuable object, problem in planning and organizing. Stage 4. Moderate cognitive decline. A careful examination leads to the confirmation of person being suffering from Alzheimer's disease. This is the mild stage of Alzheimer's disease, as the patient starts experiencing forgetting recent events or current occasions. At times they remember and at times they forget. Impairment in mental arithmetic. Difficulty in doing complex tasks. Reduced memory of personal history. Feeling of solitude and isolation as affected individual feels subdued and withdrawn. Stage 5. Moderate severe cognitive decline. This is the alarming stage where basically family members should start putting on more attention to the patient. As the patient starts suffering from major gaps in memory and deficits in cognitive function, assistance with day-to-day activities is now essential. Basically, in this stage, the individual will, during a medical interview, will be unable to recall important details like current address, their telephone number, which thus is alarming fact that not to leave them to wander alone. State of confusion. They express lots of confusion as why they are here, what were they doing, and what date is it, or even matter of fact, what season it is. Need help choosing proper clothing for the season or the occasion. Troubles with mental arithmetic, thus handling financial activity could be a strain. Though at this stage it is not as severe as they usually retain important knowledge about themselves, like knowing their own name and the names of their spouse or children. At this stage, they don't require assistance with eating or using the toilet. Stage 6. Severe cognitive decline. The stage when the individual needs his family support to the maximum as memory difficulties get severe and personality of the individual may even change, and there is extensive need for care of the patient as customary daily activities also become a hassle for the patient. The individual will have problems and symptoms like lose most attentiveness of recent experiences and awareness of events as well as of their surroundings. Recollection of their personal history is imperfect, although generally recall their own name. At times forgetting the name of their spouse, primary caregiver, though can generally distinguish familiar faces from unfamiliar faces. Need help with dressing properly as they may make errors, like putting pajamas over daytime clothes, wearing winter clothes in summer, or shoes on wrong feet. Experience disorder of their normal sleep-waking cycle. Need help even when going toileting. They may need help with flushing toilet, wiping, and disposing of tissue properly. Have increasing episodes of urinary or fecal incontinence. Experience considerable personality changes and showing off behavioral symptoms like suspiciousness and delusions. For example, they tend to believe that their caregiver is an imposter, may even have hallucinations, i.e., seeing or hearing things that are not really there, or even suffer from compulsive and repetitive behaviors that can be hand-wringing or tissue shredding. Tend to go wandering and then become lost, not knowing how they came there. Stage 7, very severe cognitive decline. This is the late stages of Alzheimer's disease, the final and framework when the individual loses most of its ability and his muscles and nerves start degenerating and loss of weight is tremendous. This is the stage where it is better to involve a nurse or put them in healthcare center, as the people who are living in with patient will feel very sad and their inability to help much will cause them pain. Individual will lose ability to respond to environment, lose ability to speak, losing capacity for recognizable speech, though word or phrases may be uttered, lose ability to control movement and reflexes, need help with even the basic activity like eating and toileting, lose ability to walk without assistance. As stage deteriorates, ability to sit without support will also go. Lose smile. They will have no expression on their face as they will not be able to smile or even uphold their head. Reflexes become abnormal, swallowing impaired, and muscles become rigid. Alzheimer drug treatments. There are a number of drugs that can treat the symptoms and give sufferers of Alzheimer's disease a better quality of life. The options available for Alzheimer's drug treatment. Whether you yourself are an Alzheimer's disease sufferer or you are caring for someone who is dealing with the disease, it is best to know whatever you can about the various drugs on the market before you go choosing one to try. One of the seldom used Alzheimer's drug treatments available is Cognex. This is used sparingly to combat the effects of Alzheimer's due to the many side effects it can lead to, hence it not being that widely praised. A more commonly used Alzheimer's drug treatment is called Exelon, which is a drug used to help the early symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. It helps by slowing the degradation of mental powers, thus aiding the sufferer in their everyday life. The loss of control with daily tasks such as dressing, eating, and general motor functions are a terrible thing for victims of the disease, and thus this particular Alzheimer's drug treatment is a boom for them. It has already proven itself to be effective for millions of Alzheimer's sufferers all over the world, and is regularly prescribed by doctors for many cases. Doctors usually prescribe a dosage of 1.5 milligrams to be taken twice daily, which can be increased every 2 weeks depending on the meds of the individual. As the disease progresses, the Alzheimer's sufferer will become more generally dependent on the outside help. This may result in the sufferer going into an Alzheimer's treatment center. Professionals at these places are available all the time in order to care for sufferers, along with being able to provide any medical assistance that is needed. As each Alzheimer's disease sufferer is an individual in their own right, the kind of Alzheimer's drug treatment they need will vary according to their doctor's suggestions. It may still take some time to decide on which is the best Alzheimer's drug treatment for any given sufferer, in order to minimize the side effects that are inherent in these types of substances. Another type of medication is Namenda. It regulates the glutamate that helps the brain to respond better to memory and learning. This kind of medication is said to be very effective. In addition to the above-mentioned medication, patients were given sleeping pills to avoid insomnia. There is also anti-anxiety medication that can treat behavioral disturbance. Lastly, antipsychotic medication is used for paranoia. Of course, doctors still believe with non-drug intervention, and families and friends can play an important part of it. If someone close to you is suffering from Alzheimer's disease, the best medication to administer is love. Their brains may be affected by the disease, but never will his heart and soul. Until there is still time, show them you care. Alzheimer nutrition tips. In the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, the sufferer's eating habits are usually not affected and are the same as before they had the disease. However, in the later stages, this can become an issue, and it is essential that they be monitored to ensure that they are getting the proper nutrition. In this guide on Alzheimer's disease, you will learn some of the basic essentials when it comes to maintaining good nutrition for an individual who has Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's nutrition basics. As the disease of Alzheimer progresses, it becomes more difficult for an individual to maintain the proper eating habits, as they tend to forget to eat and have more difficulty when doing so. It is essential that a variety of foods, including fruits and vegetables, are given and that cholesterol and saturated fats are limited. It may benefit you to try several smaller meals a day in which you can incorporate finger foods as opposed to the traditional 3 meals a day, as these may be easier for them to handle. Nutritional shakes are also a great choice when it comes to giving them the additional nutrients they may be lacking if they are having difficulty eating. The importance of monitoring hydration. As Alzheimer's disease progresses, eating as well as drinking becomes more difficult, and it is essential that they get enough fluids, as this will prevent constipation and dehydration. The minimum recommendation for fluids is at least 6 to 8 glasses a day. At meal times, ensure that there is always a beverage available and limit the table setting to only the necessary utensils, main dish, and your beverage glass, so that there is nothing else to distract them. It may also be helpful to use a beverage container with a lid so that they can keep this with them at all times, especially if they tend to wander. You can also try and encourage them by treating them to frozen drinks, such as a smoothie or an ice cream soda. Alzheimer's treatment options at a glance. While Alzheimer's disease is not a condition that may cure at this point in time, there are many treatment options available for those that are diagnosed with this serious brain disorder. The goals of these treatments are to optimize the daily functioning of the individual that suffers from the disease and to improve the quality of life of their life. In some instances, the Alzheimer's treatment options will actually show the overall progression of Alzheimer's. Many patients and their relatives make the decision to engage in treatment in order to manage the condition as it progresses into the later stages. Medications. One of the most common Alzheimer's treatment options is medication. There are many different types of medications that may be used to reduce the most common symptoms of the condition. These treatments work to slow the issue of memory loss. They help fluctuate the mood and even assist in the area of improving sleep and energy levels for the patient. The most common medications used for this brain disease include, but are not at all limited to, the following: antioxidants, antipsychotics, sleeping prescriptions, cholinesterase inhibitors, neuroleptics, antidepressants, anxiolytics, memantine. Education and support. Many people do not consider education and support when it comes to Alzheimer's treatment options, but these are actually considered to be highly effective treatments. It is important for both patients and their loved ones to gain an effective understanding of the disease, as well as how the disease progresses. Ayurveda and Alzheimer's disease treatment. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive degenerative brain disease. Gradual memory loss, poor cognitive skills, dementia, and personality problems are the main symptoms associated with Alzheimer's disease. Though there is not a complete cure for Alzheimer's, Ayurveda has the knowledge to treat the Alzheimer's patients. Ayurvedic treatment for Alzheimer's disease is very much on its developmental stage. Ayurveda scientists in India, US, and Germany are on the lookout for an effective cure for Alzheimer's disease using Ayurvedic herbs like Brahmi. According to Ayurveda, all the diseases are caused due to imbalances in body. Tridosha concept is the basis for Ayurvedic knowledge. The food, the daily actions, the thought, etc. should be in tune with Tridosha. Alzheimer's disease is due to imbalance of Vata, which is common in old age. According to Ayurvedic principles, Vata in the tissues of nervous system, especially brain, gets imbalanced. This directly leads to problems like lower levels of coordination, clear thinking, lack of inhibitions, and retarded words and actions. Manovāha sortas, or the mind channel that carries thoughts, is affected due to viditation of Vata. This is the reason for delusions and mental disturbances. Once the causes are identified, it is easy to prescribe the cures. In case of Alzheimer's, Ayurveda too offers some assistance in helping a person live with Alzheimer's. According to Ayurveda, the tensions and stress a person experiences during his or her life cause disturbances to Vata. This accumulation of which causes severe nervous problems, pressure at work, pressure experienced while changing places, constant separation from close family members, etc., all add up to the mental conditions. In India, the large family system of living is fast depleting. People move into a small family. In the not-so-older times, say before 1980s, Indian families were large with a lot of family members. There is support for the family members all the time from other members. This system has constant reinforcing power on individual members, and they enjoy healthy minds. Ayurvedic treatment for Alzheimer's. 1. Veda imbalances are common in old age. Ayurveda Alzheimer's treatment mainly aims to restoring Veda balance. Ayurvedic therapy for Alzheimer's starts with choice of a Veda-balanced diet. Ashwagandha or Withania somnifera, powder with milk. Ghee or skimmed milk, according to the digestive capacity of the person, is the first rearrangement in daily diet. This soothes and empowers Vata. 2. Daily oil massage before bath is another important part of Alzheimer's treatment in Ayurveda. The person at his or her old age must get enough nutrients. There are specialized rice preparations beneficial for persons who experience the onset of or advanced stages of Alzheimer's disease. Ayurvedic cleansing processes like panchakarma are not indicated for aged people. Other mild cleansing techniques like fumigation and enema are directed to purify body tissues. Nervine tonics like Brahmi, ashwagandha, etc. are main herbs for Alzheimer's treatment. Caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease. If someone in your family has just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, the news can be upsetting and frightening for everyone. You'll be worried about the changes that you're going to be seeing this person go through, as well as what the future holds for you as a family. You've already faced the first challenge, getting the right diagnosis. If you're going to be the primary caregiver of the family member who has been diagnosed, there are some things that you'll need to know so that you can make life easier for everyone. Make sure that you learn as much as you can about Alzheimer's disease and about being a caregiver. You'll want to find out how the disease will affect the other person, what changes will take place, and how you'll be able to provide the help that is needed so that the person retains as much of their dignity and independence as they can. You want to preserve as much of the quality of life as possible so that everyone involved feels like they are still in control and managing okay. The information that you learn about Alzheimer's disease should be shared with those people closest to the patient, such as family members, friends, and coworkers. Contact the Alzheimer's Society for more information, since they have many resources that are there for your benefit. It's important that you understand that Alzheimer's disease will have a huge impact on the person who has been diagnosed and their ability to function. This is a disease that progresses over a certain period of time. The day-to-day functions of the person will be greatly affected depending on what stage of the disease they are at. You need to learn about the day-to-day problems that you can expect to face as a caregiver. This information will give you a better understanding of the realistic capabilities of the patient. Take some time to ask how you can help them to keep their independence and a feeling of control. Perhaps the most important thing that you need to learn is how to be patient and understanding. Always keep the patient in sight. This means that no matter how the disease affects the patient, that you always remember that they are an individual with thoughts and feelings. Treat the Alzheimer's patient with dignity and respect at all times, no matter how difficult things become for the both of you. Many of the person's abilities will be lost, but they will still have feelings and emotions that need to be respected. Early symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. 1. Memory loss. The forgetfulness defined as the forgetting the most recent incidents and the learned information. It advances in forgetting the most important past dates, events, or even the names. In addition to it, prompting for any specific information again and again and relying on certain aids to help oneself out, like reminder notes, etc., or other family members for those things which were handled all by one's own self before. But what is considered normal is to forget names and appointments on occasional basis. 2. Difficulty in task performance. People at an early age of AD find difficulty in planning and carrying out the daily tasks which were even familiar to them. To be more specific, individuals may forget the steps involved in preparing a meat, playing a game, or placing a phone call, etc. However, it is normal to occasionally forget what you were to do or plan when you enter your room. 3. Language problem. Individuals with early dementia find difficulty in speaking simple words, and they often tend to substitute them with difficult ones, making it harder for others to understand. People, for example, may forget the word spoon and asking in the way, "Where is that thing with which I eat sometimes?" However, what is normal is to be unable to find the right word sometimes. Confusion, losing track of dates, passage of time, and the seasons. And even in some cases, the individuals tend to be at trouble in understanding something if it is not immediately happening. Sometimes they even can forget where they are and what are they doing. They can become disoriented with their neighborhood too. 5. Misplacement of things. An individual may misplace certain usual things at usual places, like misplacing iron in freezer, egg in the drawer, etc. However, misplacing of keys in wallets temporarily is normal. 6. Poor judgment. The sufferer may distress inappropriately in summer, wearing several warm layers and contrary in winter. 7. Change in personality. The dramatic change in personality of the individuals in early dementia is seen, focused, suspicious, fearful, and mentally dependent on other family members. 8. Losing initiative. The individual with the early Alzheimer's disease may become passive in front of TV, sitting for hours and sleeping more than usual, period. 9. Problems with abstract thinking. The individuals at early stages have reported to find difficulty in managing complex mental tasks, forgetting numbers series and their usage, etc. 10. Mood swings. In addition to changes in personality of the early stage sufferer, the sudden mood swings are also reported. From ultra calm to immediate ferociousness, from tears to anger, etc., and without any apparent reason. How to avoid Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder which shows progressive dementia, and it is the 4th most common cause of death. There are clear pathological hallmarks of the disease, many in the form of plaques and tangles. Plaques are abnormal clusters and fragments of protein which build up between nerve cells. Dying nerve cells contain tangles, which are made up of another protein. These plaque and tangles might be the reason for cell death and tissue loss in the Alzheimer's brain. Our brain has 3 major parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. The cerebrum is the major content of our skull. Its main function is in the areas of remembering, problem-solving, thinking, feeling, and controlling our movement. The cerebellum located at the back of our head under the cerebrum, and it controls our coordination and balance. The brainstem is located beneath the cerebrum, in front of the cerebellum. It connects the brain to the spinal cord and controls functions which are automatic, such as breathing, digestion, heart rate, and blood pressure. The brain is nourished by networks of blood vessels comprised of arteries, veins, and capillaries. The arteries carry blood to fuel our brain with each heartbeat. The unique outer layer of our brain is called the cortex, which is quite clearly mapped according to specific functions. Among the major functions we can notice are sight, sound, and smell, thoughts, problem-solving, memory storing and retrieving, and controlling certain movements. Our brain is divided into 2 hemispheres. The left half controls the right body side, and the right half controls the left side. The speech-language area is on the left side in most people. The brain contains over 100 billion neurons or nerve cells, which branches and generates connections at more than 1 trillion connection points. Brain signals are traveling via the network of neurons involving our memories, thoughts, and feelings. Nerve cells are connected to one another at synapses. A burst of chemicals called neurotransmitters are released at the synapses when triggered by the appropriate electric charge, and so the message is carried to other cells. Alzheimer's disease is responsible for the destructions of those neurons and to the disruption of the activity of the neurotransmitters. We also know that Alzheimer's disease leads to nerve cell death and tissue loss throughout the brain. Over time, the brain shrinks dramatically, affecting nearly all its functions. Shrinkage is especially severe in the hippocampus, which is an area of the cortex that plays a major role in formation of new memories. Early symptoms are in the area of learning and memory, thinking and planning, which may interfere with work or social life. At this stage, people may get confused and have problems expressing themselves, organizing, and handling money. As Alzheimer's progresses, individuals may experience changes in personality and behavior and have trouble recognizing friends and family members. People with Alzheimer may live on average of 8 years. In certain cases, it may be more, depends on other health conditions and other factors like genetics. What causes Alzheimer's? It is assumed that the cause is a complex sequence of events comprising of genetic, environmental, and lifestyle factors. We do not understand the exact cause or the contributions of those factors, and it varies from case to case. What diagnostic tools are available? Until today, there are no effective therapies to cure, to halt, or to slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease. At the same time, there are many diagnostic tools to identify the disease, such as non-invasive imaging techniques to assess the aspects of neuroanatomy, chemistry, physiology, and pathology of the disease and its evolutionary status. One of the popular examinations is using magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, mainly because it enables the visualization of the brain structures in 3 dimensions. Computed tomography, or CT, is another visualization tool used for the diagnosis and evaluation of dementia, especially for cases at early stages. The positron emission tomography, or PET scan, shows brain activity in real time associated with functions such as reading, hearing, thinking, and saying words. High activity areas are marked with red, and they decrease in colors as activity level decreases. PET scan is also used to detect alterations in regional brain metabolism. This metabolic overactivity is reflected as red hot spots on PET images, enabling doctors to confirm the status of specific tumor areas and assess whether they have spread. Recently, new devices combining multimodalities are being developed, such as MRI PET. This is a hybrid imaging technology that utilizes MRI soft tissue morphological capabilities with PET functional imaging, which is effective for tumor detection. Learning how to cope with Alzheimer's disease. Dealing with this disease can be exhaustive, as there is so much that needs to be considered. The disease itself is in stages and can take 3 months to 20 years to progress. Each of these stages will contribute to everyday activities by way of general mood, general behavior, and thinking. Dealing with these stages of Alzheimer's can be very frustrating indeed, particularly if you are the person living through the suffering. During the early stages of Alzheimer's, there are people who will be able to cope very well with the disease, but as time progresses, the later stages may prove all too much as the severity of the condition takes its toll, and sufferers are sometimes not able to do anything for themselves and become bedridden. Seeing this happen to a loved one can be unbelievably trying, an experience that one would not want imposed upon any other person, as emotions may run very high and the associated stress may be phenomenal. However, if the condition of Alzheimer's disease has been diagnosed, then it is imperative that the correct care procedures be followed in order to ensure the patient is looked after properly. How will you cope? Will you be able to cope? All of these questions will need to be answered in order to deal with the situation. You must be prepared and will need all the information and help you can acquire to get through this. Alzheimer's caregivers. If you evaluate your opinions, you may find that some of the care choices available to you include in-home care, nursing homes, or perhaps adult daycare. Other sufferers may need more frequent supervision, full-time care in the home, or care in a residential or nursing home. Nursing homes are overburdened with dementia sufferers, especially those with Alzheimer's disease. All of these care options will need to be contemplated when considering the best primary care for the Alzheimer's sufferer. As the disease progresses, they will need more help than ever before, so it is prudent that a structured care plan be put into place. Safety tips for Alzheimer's disease. If you're a caregiver for someone who has Alzheimer's disease, there are some things that you'll want to do to make the home safer for them to live in. One of the goals of a caregiver is to keep your family member or patient home as long as you can. There are several things that you can do to make the home as safe as possible. Improve the lighting in the home. This includes hallways, stairways, and bathrooms. Try to have the same level of lighting throughout, since changes in light levels can be confusing for some patients. Put rugs that are a different color than the floor or carpeting in front of stairs and doors so that the patient has an easier time identifying where they are. Always make sure the patient takes their medication while you are watching. You want to make sure that they are taking it and not missing a dose. Close off any areas that can be a danger to the patient. You can use child safety latches and locks to make many areas inaccessible, such as knife drawers in the kitchen. Make sure that the food in the refrigerator is fresh and not spoiled. People with Alzheimer's disease will often eat whatever they find regardless of the taste or condition of the food. Limit the use of some equipment in the home, such as the oven, stove, toasters, and knives. Look for appliances that come with an automatic shutoff device. This can prevent fires and burns. Have a list of phone numbers posted at every phone. This includes phone numbers for the police, fire, doctor, poison control, and family members. Check to make sure that smoke alarms are working correctly. Keep fire extinguishers throughout the home. Register with the Safe Return Program. This program helps those people who have Alzheimer's disease make it home safely if they wander off and get lost. Taking care of anyone who has Alzheimer's disease requires supervision that is sometimes constant. This means that you need to make things as easy on yourself as you can so that you don't spend too much time keeping your patient away from things that can harm them. When you have a home that is full of safety features, you know that your patient is going to be safe. This allows you to focus on other aspects of home care, such as taking care of your patient's emotions and making sure that they still do some of the activities that they enjoy doing. Stress hormones and their relation to Alzheimer's disease. Our bodies are hardwired by nature to react to stress in a way that was originally meant to protect us against perceived threats from predators and aggressors. The fight or flight response is our natural alarm system and a normal psychological and physical reaction to stress. Many of the demands of life, such as workload, traffic, financial obligations, taking care of children, and aging parents can cause your time clock to keep on ticking. That increased levels of stress hormones can cause serious health problems in the long run. When you encounter perceived threats such as a large dog barking at you during a morning walk, your hypothalamus sets off an alarm system in your body. Through a combination of nerve and hormonal signals, this system prompts your adrenal glands, located at the top of your kidneys, to release a surge of hormones, including adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline increases your heart rate, elevates your blood pressure, and boosts energy supplies. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, increases sugar or glucose into the bloodstream and enhances your brain's use of glucose and increases the ability of substance that repair tissues. Cortisol also curbs functions that would be non-essential or detrimental in a fight or flight situation. It alters immune system responses and suppresses the digestive system, the reproductive system, and growth process. Normally, after the perceived threat is diminished and release of the stress hormones ceases and your body returns to its normal state. The complex natural alarm system also communicates with regions of your brain that control mood, motivation, and fear. Long periods of being stressed and overexposure to cortisol and other stress hormones can affect almost all of your body's processes. This puts you at increased risk of numerous health problems, including heart disease, sleep disorders, digestive problems, depression, obesity, memory impairment, skin conditions such as eczema. Researchers at UC Irvine have discovered that stress hormones also appear to rapidly exacerbate the formation of brain lesions, which are the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. The findings suggest that managing stress and reducing certain medications prescribed for the elderly could slow down the progression of this devastating disease. Frank LaFerla, professor of neurobiology and behavior, and a team of UCI researchers found that when young animals were injected for just 7 days with dexamethasone, a glucocorticoid similar to the body's stress hormones, the levels of the protein beta amyloid in the brain increased by 60%. When beta amyloid production increases and these protein fragments aggregate, they form plaques, one of the 2 hallmark brain lesions of Alzheimer's disease. Scientists also found that the levels of another protein, tau, also increased. Tau accumulation eventually leads to the formation of tangles, the other signature lesion of Alzheimer's. The findings for this study appeared in the Journal of Neuroscience. The increased accumulation of beta amyloid and tau appears to work in a feedback loop to hasten the progression of Alzheimer's. The researchers found that the higher levels of beta amyloid and tau led to an increase in the levels of the stress hormones, which would come back to the brain and speed up the formation of more plaques and tangles. According to the researchers, these findings have profound implications for how to treat the elderly who suffer from Alzheimer's. This study suggests that not only is stress management an important factor in treating Alzheimer's disease, but that physicians should pay close attention to the pharmaceutical products they prescribe for their elderly patients, said Kim Green, a postdoctoral researcher in neurobiology and behavior. Some medications prescribed for the elderly people who live in assisted living or nursing home environments for various conditions contain glucocorticoids. These drugs may be leading to accelerated cognitive decline in patients in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder that affects nearly 5 million adults in the United States. If no effective therapies are developed, it is estimated that 13 million Americans will be afflicted with the disease by 2050. Dementia care is available in assisted living facilities, Los Angeles, as well as other major cities across the nation. Dementia care is specifically for seniors suffering from Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. The effects of Alzheimer's disease. A definition of the effects of Alzheimer's disease would probably be that it can start without any real identifiable symptoms and continues to steadily get worse over time. The disease starts by affecting certain cells in our brain. Once Alzheimer's disease takes hold, it gradually begins to damage the brain cells, up to the point where they will eventually die. Symptoms will include the deterioration of memory, affects reasoning ability, and the ability to hold normal fluent conversations. Many scientists are in agreement with the theory that Alzheimer's disease starts to kick in because the body starts to overproduce a certain protein, commonly known as beta amyloid protein. The excess production of this particular protein results in the brain cells being attacked. The effects of Alzheimer's disease become more common in people once they have reached the age of 70. It can, in some cases, affect people who are in their 50s, but the odds are that if a person is over 70, the chances of contracting the disease are increased heavily. It is thought that at least half of the people that are into their 80s suffer from some form of Alzheimer's disease. One of the major reasons that Alzheimer's is on the increase in the Western world is that people are living longer. So the more older the population is, the more people will suffer from the disease. Just because you are getting older, it doesn't mean that you will definitely succumb to the disease. There are lots of people who have reached a high number of years and have never had a problem with Alzheimer's. It is also thought that another effect of Alzheimer's disease is that particular types of genes are more prone to get Alzheimer's disease. That means if someone has suffered from the disease, then the odds of their offspring developing that disease will be much higher. There are a number of other reasons that may start the onset of Alzheimer's disease. Things like hypertension, diabetes, higher levels of cholesterol and heart disease, and constant stress can all contribute towards Alzheimer's. On the other hand, there are people who have suffered from the conditions above and gone on to live lives completely free of the disease. The truth of the matter is that we cannot identify the exact causes of Alzheimer's, and at the moment it is mostly guesswork based on the research so far. The main problem is that the number of people who suffer from Alzheimer's is growing, and we don't know why. The The consequences of the disease can be extremely severe, not only on the people who suffer from it, but on the people who have to care for and watch the sufferers going through the process. We all need to become aware of what sort of signs to look for. This is really important because medication can be provided for the sufferers of Alzheimer's disease, which will help slow down the effects of Alzheimer's disease and the destruction of the brain cells. The neurological causes of Alzheimer's disease. The true causes of Alzheimer's disease remain elusive. However, researchers have made progress in understanding the neurological roots of this debilitating condition. The disease is named after Alois Alzheimer, who was the first to identify the peculiar plaques and tangles in the brain, which is characteristic of the illness. Till the final decades of the 20th century, Alzheimer's could be diagnosed accurately only by a post-mortem examination. Nowadays, scientists are beginning to uncover precisely what is happening and why those characteristic tangles and plaques crop up in the brain. Many of the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease are caused by neurofibrillary tangles in the brain. Microscopic filaments clog the neurons. These filaments are made up of an abnormal kind of tau protein. In a normal brain, tau protein bonds to the microtubules and enables transmission of messages from one neuron to another. But in an Alzheimer's brain, instead of bonding into message pathways, tau protein bonds with itself, and the neuron messages go nowhere. Since the neurons are clogged, signals from the environment are no longer transmitted the way they should be. That is why severe cognitive impairment is one of the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. Scientists speculate that tau protein malfunction, which results in neurofibrillary tangles, is caused by beta-amyloid protein, but this is yet to be conclusively proved. It is beta-amyloid protein that causes plaques between neurons, which is the other main damage to the brain in Alzheimer's disease. The plaque deposits are sticky patches in the brain which contain beta-amyloid protein. Plaques block communication pathways between neurons, which results in the memory problems and learning inabilities associated with Alzheimer's disease. The degree of cognitive impairment depends on the amount of plaque present. Plaque acts by interfering with the normal functioning of acetylcholine, which helps to transmit nerve messages. Treatment for Alzheimer's disease involves using acetylcholine esterase inhibitors, which works by blocking enzymes that consume the acetylcholine. This medication is effective during the early stages of the disease before too much plaque has already built up. Some research seems to indicate that plaques cause tangles. One study took proteins from mice to eliminate the plaque-causing beta-amyloid. They found that the proteins got rid of the tangles as well. Similar effects have been brought about by other medications as well. Others believe that both plaques and tangles are the result of other processes. One possible culprit is swollen axons. Axons are critical for transmitting messages between neurons. When axons swell, they may block message transmission and perhaps lead to the plaques and tangles which bring on Alzheimer's disease. Scientists are working hard at uncovering the causes of Alzheimer's disease, which may sooner or later lead to a comprehensive cure for this dreaded condition. Top Alzheimer remedies. Alzheimer's disease is a brain disorder in which the brain cells involved with memory, judgment, intelligence, and behavior undergo progressive deterioration. This severely affects one's work, social life, and even daily activities. It can be frightening for the Alzheimer patient and for their immediate family or support system to watch the mental decline and behavioral changes. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia and accounts for 50 to 70% of dementia cases. According to statistics, 5.3 million people in the United States are living with Alzheimer's. While Alzheimer's cures are not present, there is speedy effort worldwide to find treatments for the disease, delay its onset, or prevent it from developing. Currently, there is no known medical cure for Alzheimer's. Treatments aim to reduce Alzheimer's symptoms rather than cure the disease. 1. Use your mind. This saying is so true. Use your mind. People who stay alert and active are less likely to develop Alzheimer's later on in life. Feed your brain constantly with knowledge and involve yourself in hobbies and work. Research has shown that when you learn new things constantly, it causes neurons nerve cells in the brain, to bind together in new ways, play trivia, solve crossword puzzles, or learn something new, maybe join an adult education course. These mentally stimulating activities work wonders to prevent or even slow down disease progression. 2. Antioxidants. Vitamin A, E, and C are powerful antioxidants. Believed to play a positive role on brain nerves and memory, vitamin supplements as well as food sources of vitamins A, C, and E are highly beneficial for brain health. 3. Omega-3 fats. Fish and flax seeds are called as brain foods as they are rich in omega-3 fatty acids. They promote healthy brain functions. 4. Herb. Ginkgo biloba leaf extract may play a positive role in treatment of Alzheimer's disease, though its role needs further research. Also, consult a natural cure therapist or even your local practitioner before starting herbal therapy treatment for Alzheimer patients. 5. Good support system. It is disheartening to watch a close friend or family member develop Alzheimer's. The family member often goes in denial. The caregiver needs to have a lot of patience and deal with these patients with love, care, and understanding. Ways caregivers can support loved ones with Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's type dementia is one of the most debilitating mental diseases. It robs a person of his or her personality and his or her true identity. Stages of Alzheimer's and caregiving support. From the very beginning stages of Alzheimer's, a person slowly loses his or her ability to perform basic functions, like holding a fork or getting dressed, and then slowly, other things like memories fade away. But due to a lot of public awareness and role models, more caregivers feel more comfortable seeking resources and support so that they are able to support and comfort their loved ones. Types of caregiving activities. In addition to identifying key resources such as medical support, social services, and governmental programs, caregivers can offer their support in other more creative and personal outlets. Types of support caregivers can offer include playing a parent's favorite music or telling about a significant memory, using different kinds of funny humor with Alzheimer's patients to help reconnect them to that pleasurable sensation or trigger off an emotional reaction. Humor in Alzheimer's. Ever since Ronald Reagan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, people became more aware of the importance of seeking out resources to get help when caring for someone with Alzheimer's. Humor can often play a big role in care. While people were initially amused that a former U.S. president wanted to play horsey with his medical attendants, caregivers seriously considered humor as therapy for their loved ones, as well as for their own stresses. People have joined laughter clubs for Alzheimer's in order to feel more comfortable with their own inhibitions about dealing with this difficult disease. Alzheimer's Association provides more support. So long as there is no Alzheimer's cure, caregivers need to find a way to release the stress for caregiving. Check out the Alzheimer's Association regional chapters near you. Often what happens when caregivers share these stories, they learn from others about other ways to help strengthen their loved ones' memories. It is no secret that by providing stimulating and nurturing activities for an Alzheimer's patient, one can actually see the love and build a connection, which is as vital and critical as the loved one progresses from one stage to another. The initial hardship for a caregiver is coming to terms knowing that Alzheimer's is a progressively degenerating disease. However, there are many caregiving activities and support groups for dealing with Alzheimer's all around the world. What happens in the brain of an Alzheimer's patient? What happens in the brain of an Alzheimer's patient to cause all the cognitive and behavioral symptoms of the sickness? Alois Alzheimer was the first to find the strange plaques and tangles, characteristics of sickness in the brain of one of his patients during an autopsy. For years, Alzheimer's disease could only be diagnosed with a high degree of accurate post-mortem. Now, researchers are learning more about what exactly is happening in the brain of Alzheimer's patients to cause sickness. The brains of Alzheimer's patients contain neurofibrillary tangles inside neurons and clumps of fibers called neurotic plaques outside of neurons. These tangles and plaques, first described by Alois Alzheimer in 1907, are the main cause of Alzheimer's disease. Brain damage occurs as a result of neurons being clogged with microscopic filaments, which are made up of an abnormal type of tau protein. Clogged neurons are no longer able to do their job and pass along the impulses they receive from the environment. Therefore, disabled neurons are one cause of cognitive impairments associated with Alzheimer's disease. Brain damage due to neurofibrillary tangles is also found in associated diseases such as Parkinson's disease. However, tangles and plaques are not unique for the development and progression of Alzheimer's. Studies now indicate that dementia in Alzheimer's patients is caused by the shrinkage and death of neurons and synaptic loss, not by tangles and plaques themselves. However, according to a leading hypothesis, amyloid deposits play an early role by setting in motion a cascade of biochemical events that cause the cells to shrink and die. Experts also believe that decreased levels of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, a chemical that bridges synapses between neurons that affect memory, also contributes to memory loss of Alzheimer's disease.